They rode across our screens as the heroes of the American West, the gunfighters, the lawmen, the drifters, and the cowboys who made us believe in a wilder, braver world. But many of them were taken far too soon. Tonight, we're visiting the graves of beloved Western actors who died young, where they rest and how they got there. Some lie beneath grand monuments. Some rest in quiet graves the world forgot. Let's begin, one hero at a time. We begin with one of the most tragic and mysterious deaths in the history of the Western. A rising star whose end has never been fully explained. George Reeves is best remembered as television's original Superman, but before donning the cape he was a promising Hollywood actor who had appeared in Gone with the Wind and a string of westerns and war pictures. He was born in Iowa in 1914 and raised in California, and his rugged good looks and easy charm made him a natural for the action roles of the era. Riding through B-westerns and serials in the 1940s, but it was the role of Superman on the hit television series Adventures of Superman that made him a household name and an idol to millions of children, even as it typecast him and frustrated his ambitions for a more serious career. He longed to escape the cape and be taken seriously as an actor, but the role had made him too recognizable. On the night of the 16th of June, 1959, George Reeves died of a gunshot wound to the head in his Los Angeles home, in circumstances that have been debated ever since. The death was officially ruled a suicide, but many, including his own mother, believed he had been murdered, and the case has remained one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. He was just 45 years old. He is buried at Mountain View Cemetery in Altadena, California. His grave is quiet, and the beloved actor who was Superman to a generation and who rode through so many early westerns rests beneath a modest marker. His shocking death, still unexplained after more than 60 years, a haunting end for a man who had been a hero to millions of children. We travel now to honor a college football hero turned Western star, whose long career and quiet death deserve remembering. Johnny Mack Brown, a college football hero turned Western star, whose long career and quiet death deserve remembering. He was born in Alabama in 1904 and became a genuine football legend. A star halfback who led his team to victory in the Rose Bowl before Hollywood came calling, drawn by his athletic build and handsome face. He became a leading man in the late, silent, and early sound era, appearing opposite some of the biggest stars of the day, before finding his true home in the saddle as one of the most popular B-Western cowboy heroes of the 1930s and 1940s. For nearly 2 decades, Johnny Mack Brown rode through dozens upon dozens of low-budget westerns, a beloved and dependable hero to Saturday matinee audiences across America, his easy Southern charm and athletic grace making him a favorite of countless young fans. But as the B-Western faded in the 1950s, his career declined, and he worked less and less, largely forgotten by the industry he had served so faithfully. Johnny Mack Brown died in 1974 at 70, of heart failure in California. He is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills. His grave is quiet, and the beloved football hero turned cowboy star, who rode through so many beloved westerns and thrilled a generation of matinee audiences, rests largely unvisited today. His enormous popularity faded into history, along with the singing cowboys and Saturday serials of the era he helped define. We travel now to honor one of the most beloved sidekicks in the history of the Western, whose raspy voice and warm humor made him a favorite for decades. Andy Devine, whose raspy voice and warm humor made him one of the most beloved character actors in Western history. He was born in Arizona in 1905, and a childhood accident gave him the distinctive, raspy, wheezing voice that would become his trademark and his fortune, instantly recognizable and utterly unique in all of Hollywood. He became one of the most beloved comic sidekicks in the Western genre, riding alongside the greatest cowboy stars of the era, most famously as Cookie, the sidekick to Roy Rogers, and later as Jingles in the television series The Adventures of Wild Bill Hickok. His warm, bumbling, good-natured presence and his unforgettable voice made him a favorite of children and adults alike, a reassuring and lovable figure in countless westerns across 3 decades. He appeared in classic films for John Ford, including Stagecoach and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, respected by the greatest directors even as he delighted Saturday matinee crowds. Andy Devine died in 1977, at 71, of leukemia and complications. In California, he is buried at Pacific View Memorial Park in Corona del Mar, California. overlooking the ocean. His grave is quiet. And the beloved sidekick, with the unforgettable raspy voice, who brought such warmth and humor to the Western for so many years, rests now largely unvisited. His gap-toothed grin and his wheezing laugh living on only in the classic films and television westerns that made him one of the most cherished character actors of the Golden Age. We travel now to honor the greatest cowboy star of the silent era, whose death on a lonely Arizona highway ended one of the most spectacular careers in Western history. Tom Mix, the greatest cowboy star of the silent era, whose death on a lonely Arizona highway ended one of the most spectacular careers in Western history. He was born in Pennsylvania in 1880 and, after a colorful early life that he embellished into legend, became the most famous cowboy in the world, the king of the silent Western, and the direct inspiration for nearly every cowboy hero who followed. He made hundreds of films, performing his own daring stunts, and his flashy costumes, his wonder horse Tony, and his thrilling action made him an idol to millions of children and one of the highest-paid stars in all of Hollywood. He was, quite simply, the template for the movie Cowboy, the man who defined the genre for a generation. But the coming of sound and changing tastes slowed his career, and he spent his later years touring with circuses. On the 12th of October 1940, Tom Mix was driving his speeding automobile on an Arizona highway when he came upon construction and was unable to stop, and the car overturned. He was killed instantly, struck by a metal case in his own car. He was 60 years old. He is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. The greatest cowboy star of the silent screen, the man who invented the movie Cowboy, rests beneath a marker. His spectacular career and his sudden death on a desert highway now remembered by too few. We travel now to honor the beloved star of the television Western wagon train, whose sudden death ended a long and cherished career. Ward Bond, the beloved character actor and star of the television Western wagon train, whose sudden death ended a long and cherished career. He was born in Nebraska in 1903 and became one of the most prolific and beloved character actors in Hollywood history. A close friend of John Wayne and a member of John Ford's celebrated stock company, appearing in a staggering number of classic films across 3 decades. He was a gruff, burly, commanding presence, memorable in countless westerns and dramas, including The Searchers and It's a Wonderful Life, before finding his greatest fame late in his career as the wagon master, Major Seth Adams, on the enormously popular television Western wagon train. The role made him at last a leading man and a household name, beloved by the millions who tuned in each week. But at the height of the show's success, tragedy struck. On the 5th of November, 1960, Ward Bond died suddenly of a heart attack in a Dallas hotel room. He was 57 years old, and his death shocked his fans and his many friends in Hollywood. He is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills. His grave is quiet, and the beloved wagon master, one of the most familiar faces in the history of the Western, rests largely unvisited today. We travel now to honor the last of the great singing cowboys, known as the Arizona Cowboy, whose warm voice made him a star before a freak accident ended his life. Rex Allen, known as the Arizona Cowboy, the last of the great singing cowboys, whose warm voice made him a star before a freak accident ended his life. He was born in Arizona in 1920 and rose from rural poverty to become a radio, recording, film, and television star, the last major singing cowboy to be launched by Hollywood, a genuine successor to Gene Autry and Roy Rogers. His rich baritone and his easygoing charm made him a beloved star of B-westerns in the early 1950s, and he later became famous all over again as the warm, folksy narrator of countless Disney nature films, his voice known to a whole new generation of children. He was a beloved and familiar presence in American entertainment for decades, the genial Arizona cowboy whose voice conveyed warmth and reassurance. But his death was a cruel and freak accident. In December 1999, Rex Allen was struck by his own caretaker's vehicle in the driveway of his Arizona home when the man did not see him. He died of his injuries. He was 78 years old. He is buried in Willcox, Arizona, his beloved hometown, which holds a festival in his honor. The last of the singing cowboys, whose warm voice narrated the childhoods of millions, rests in the Arizona desert he loved, his gentle presence lost in a senseless accident at his own home. We travel now to honor one of the most popular and enduring B-Western stars of the 1930s and 1940s. A small but intense cowboy hero of the Golden Age. Bob Steele, one of the most popular and enduring B-Western stars of the 1930s and 1940s, a small but athletic and intense cowboy hero whose long career spanned the entire golden age of the genre. He was born in Oregon in 1907, the son of a filmmaker, and he appeared in films as a child before becoming, as a young man, one of the most popular cowboy stars of the sound B-Western era, known for his athletic fighting scenes and his intense, believable performances. Though he was shorter than many leading men, his energy, his skill in the saddle, and his convincing action made him a favorite of matinee audiences for 2 full decades, riding through an enormous number of low-budget westerns. He also proved himself a capable dramatic actor in a memorable role in the classic film Of Mice and Men. As the B-Western faded, Steele successfully transitioned to character roles, appearing in many films and finding late career fame on the television series F Troop. Bob Steele died in 1988 at 81 of emphysema in California. He is buried at Chapel of the Pines Crematory in Los Angeles. His grave is quiet, and the beloved, intense cowboy hero, who rode through so many westerns across the golden age of the genre, rests largely unvisited today. His athletic heroics and his long, prolific career remembered now mainly by devoted fans of the B-Western era he helped to define. We travel now to honor the whip-cracking cowboy star whose black-clad anti-hero thrilled matinee audiences and whose turbulent life ended after decades of hardship. Lash LaRue, the whip-cracking cowboy star whose black-clad anti-hero thrilled matinee audiences and whose turbulent life ended after decades of hardship. He was born in Louisiana around 1917 and rose to fame in the late 1940s with a wholly distinctive screen persona, a cowboy dressed all in black who wielded a bullwhip with astonishing skill rather than relying only on his guns. His dark, brooding presence, modeled in part on Humphrey Bogart, set him apart from the wholesome singing cowboys of the era, and his whip-cracking heroics made him a matinee sensation and a genuine star. He personally taught Harrison Ford the whip techniques later used in the Indiana Jones films, a lasting mark on cinema. But Lash LaRue's life off-screen was chaotic and troubled, marked by numerous marriages, financial ruin, arrests, and struggles with addiction. A steep fall from his years of stardom. He drifted for decades through hard times, his glory days long behind him. Lash LaRue died in 1996 at around 78 of emphysema in California, having found some measure of peace late in life. He is buried in California, the whip-cracking cowboy in black, who thrilled a generation of matinee audiences and taught Indiana Jones to use a whip, rests now largely forgotten. His distinctive heroics and his turbulent life faded from memory. We travel now to honor a rugged and prolific star of westerns and action films whose towering presence made him a dependable hero for 2 decades. Rod Cameron, a rugged and prolific star of westerns and action films whose towering presence made him a dependable hero for 2 decades. He was born in Canada in 1910 and stood well over 6 feet tall. A powerfully built and handsome leading man who became a busy and popular star of B-westerns and adventure films throughout the 1940s and 1950s. His imposing physique and quiet authority made him a natural cowboy hero and action lead, and he starred in a long series of westerns as well as early television series, a familiar and reassuring presence to audiences of the era. He was a working actor of the most dependable kind, riding through countless films and always delivering the rugged heroism his fans expected. Rod Cameron worked steadily for decades, a beloved if never top-tier star of the western genre. He lived a longer life than many on this list, dying in 1983 at 73 of cancer in California. He is buried in California. His grave is quiet, and the towering, rugged cowboy hero who rode through so many westerns and action films across 2 decades of the genre's golden age rests largely unvisited today. His dependable heroics and his imposing screen presence remembered now mainly by the devoted fans who still cherish the B-westerns and early television adventures of his prolific career. We travel now to honor one of the greatest and most daring cowboy stars of the silent era, a trick-riding genius whose career was destroyed by drink and a difficult temperament. Ken Maynard, one of the greatest and most daring cowboy stars of the silent and early sound era, a genuine trick-riding genius whose spectacular horsemanship thrilled millions before drink and a difficult temperament destroyed his career. He was born in Indiana in 1895 and became a champion rodeo and circus trick rider before Hollywood made him a star. And his astonishing riding skills, performed on his famous horse Tarzan, set a standard for Western action that few could match. He was one of the biggest cowboy stars of the late 1920s and early 1930s, and he was a genuine innovator, among the first to combine music with the Western, helping to pave the way for the singing cowboys who followed. But Ken Maynard was famously difficult, hard-drinking, and volatile, and his temper and his alcoholism steadily destroyed his career and his relationships, driving away the studios and collaborators who might have sustained him. His fall was long and sad. By his final years, the once great star was living in poverty and near obscurity, his fortune squandered. Ken Maynard died in 1973 at 77, of complications related to his declining health and hard living, in a California hospital, nearly destitute. He is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills. The daring trick-riding genius, one of the greatest cowboy stars of the silent screen, rests now largely forgotten. His spectacular horsemanship and his tragic decline faded into history. We travel now to honor one of the most popular cowboy stars in the history of the Western, whose life ended in one of the most horrifying disasters in American history. Buck Jones, one of the most popular cowboy stars in the history of the Western, a beloved matinee hero whose life ended in one of the most horrifying disasters in American history. He was born in Indiana in 1891 and, after service in the Army and years in Wild West shows, became one of the biggest cowboy stars of the 1920s and 1930s, rivaling even Tom Mix in popularity. His rugged good looks, his athletic ability, and his convincing heroism made him an idol to millions of children, and his famous horse Silver was known across the land. He commanded enormous loyalty from his young fans, who joined his fan clubs by the hundreds of thousands, and he was, for years, one of the most beloved heroes of the Saturday matinee. But Buck Jones met a shocking and tragic end. On the 28th of November, 1942, he was attending a party at the Coconut Grove nightclub in Boston when a catastrophic fire broke out, one of the deadliest fires in American history, killing nearly 500 people. Buck Jones died of his burns and injuries days later. He was 51 years old. He is buried at Woodlawn Cemetery in Santa Monica, California. The beloved cowboy hero, one of the greatest matinee stars of the Western, who was idolized by millions of children, rests now largely unvisited, his athletic heroics and his horrifying death in the Coconut Grove fire remembered by too few. We travel now to honor the towering actor best known as Frankenstein's monster, who spent most of his career in westerns and died beloved as the bartender Sam on Gunsmoke. Glenn Strange, the towering actor best known for playing Frankenstein's monster who spent most of his career in westerns, and who died beloved as the bartender Sam on the landmark series Gunsmoke. He was born in New Mexico in 1899, of part Cherokee descent, and the enormous, powerfully built actor became a prolific Western heavy, appearing in a staggering number of B-Westerns as a villain and henchman across the 1930s and 1940s, his imposing size making him a natural screen menace. He also famously played the Frankenstein monster in several Universal horror films, a role that made his hulking form iconic. But to television audiences, he became most beloved late in his career as Sam Noonan, the kindly bartender of the Long Branch Saloon on the classic and long-running Western Gunsmoke, a warm and familiar presence he played for over a decade. For over a decade, he was a warm and steady presence behind the bar of the Long Branch, one of the most familiar faces on one of the most beloved Westerns ever made, cherished by the millions who tuned in each week. It was a fitting late career home for a man who had spent his life in the genre, moving from menacing henchman to beloved friend. Glenn Strange died in 1973, at 74, of lung cancer, while still working on the show, mourned by his Gunsmoke castmates and by his many fans. He is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills. The towering actor, a prolific Western villain and horror icon who became a beloved television bartender in his final years, rests now largely unvisited today. His imposing presence and his warm Long Branch smile, remembered mainly by the devoted fans who still cherish the classic westerns and monster films of Hollywood's golden age. We travel now to honor the beloved star of television's Annie Oakley, whose sharpshooting heroine made her a hero to a generation of young girls. Gail Davis, the beloved star of television's Annie Oakley, whose sharpshooting heroine made her a hero to a generation of young girls. She was born in Arkansas in 1925 and, after being discovered by Gene Autry, became a prolific Western actress, appearing in numerous films and television episodes before making history as the star of Annie Oakley, one of the first television westerns to feature a woman in the leading heroic role. As the sharpshooting, horse-riding Annie Oakley, Gail Davis performed many of her own stunts and became a genuine role model and idol to countless young girls across America, proving that a woman could be the hero of a Western. She was a skilled rider and shooter in real life, and her wholesome, capable heroine broke new ground for women in the genre. At a time when the Western was almost entirely a man's world, she stood out as a rare female lead, galloping across the screen and hitting every target, an inspiration to countless young girls who finally saw someone like themselves as the hero of the story. She remained close to her mentor Gene Autry throughout her life, and was a beloved figure at Western gatherings and fan festivals for years. After the series ended, she worked less in front of the camera, and her later years were quieter, spent away from the spotlight she had once commanded. Gail Davis died in 1997 at 71 of cancer in California. She is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills. The beloved Annie Oakley, a pioneering heroine who showed an entire generation of young girls that they too could ride and shoot and be the hero of a Western, rests now largely unvisited today. Her groundbreaking heroism, remembered mainly by those who grew up watching her, prove that the West belonged to women too. We travel now to honor the star of the television Western, The Rebel, a gifted and ambitious actor whose mysterious early death cut short a promising career. Nick Adams, a gifted and ambitious actor whose starring role in the television Western The Rebel made him a star, and whose mysterious early death cut short a promising career. He was born in Pennsylvania in 1931, the son of a Ukrainian immigrant coal miner, and he clawed his way into Hollywood through sheer determination, befriending stars like James Dean and Elvis Presley. He found his greatest fame as Johnny Yuma, the brooding, restless former Confederate soldier wandering the West in the popular television series The Rebel, a role that made him a star and showcased his intense, moody screen presence. He was a serious and driven actor who even earned an Academy Award nomination, hungry for the recognition he felt he deserved. But his career stalled after his early success, and his personal life grew troubled, marked by a bitter divorce and financial strain. In February 1968, Nick Adams was found dead in his Los Angeles home of a drug overdose, in circumstances that were ruled accidental or undetermined, but that have fueled speculation ever since. He was just 36 years old. He is buried in Berwick, Pennsylvania, his hometown. The brooding star of The Rebel, a gifted and driven actor taken far too young in mysterious circumstances, rests now in the Pennsylvania coal country where he was born. We travel now to honor the eternal symbol of restless youth, whose single Western role in Giant made him immortal, and whose death at 24 is one of film's most famous early losses. James Dean, whose single Western role in Giant made him immortal, and whose death at 24 is one of the most famous early losses in film history. He was born in Indiana in 1931 and became, in just 3 films, the eternal symbol of restless, wounded youth. But his final film was a Western epic, the sprawling Texas saga Giant, in which he gave one of his greatest performances as the brooding ranch hand turned oil baron Jet Rink. His portrayal of Rink, aging from a sullen young cowhand into a bitter, lonely tycoon, revealed the astonishing depth of his talent and stands as one of the great performances in any Western. But James Dean never saw the film released. On the 30th of September, 1955, driving his Porsche to a race, he was killed in a highway collision in Central California. He was just 24 years old, and Giant was released after his death, earning him a posthumous Academy Award nomination. He is buried at Park Cemetery in Fairmount, Indiana, his hometown. The eternal rebel, whose brooding oil baron in Giant proved he could have been one of the great Western actors, rests beneath a simple stone in rural Indiana, gone at 24, his enormous promise frozen forever in his 3 brief films. We travel now to honor the most decorated American combat soldier of the Second World War, who became a beloved Western movie star and died in a plane crash at just 45. Audie Murphy, the most decorated American combat soldier of the Second World War, who became a beloved Western movie star and whose life ended in a plane crash at just 45. He was born in Texas in 1925, into desperate rural poverty, and became a genuine national hero during the war, earning the Medal of Honor and virtually every other award for valor through acts of almost unbelievable courage. His fame as a war hero brought him to Hollywood, where his boyish good looks and quiet manner made him a natural for the Western, and he became one of the most popular cowboy stars of the 1950s, riding through dozens of films and even playing himself in the hit movie of his own life story. He was beloved by audiences who knew his real heroism, a soft-spoken hero on screen and off. But Audie Murphy struggled privately with what would now be called post-traumatic stress from the war, suffering nightmares and turmoil beneath his calm exterior. On the 28th of May, 1971, the private plane in which he was traveling crashed into a mountain in Virginia in bad weather, killing everyone aboard. He was just 45 years old. He is buried at Arlington National Cemetery, where his grave is one of the most visited of all. The war hero turned Western star, a genuine American legend, rests among the nation's honored dead, gone too soon, in a mountain plane crash. We travel now to honor the authentic frontiersman and cavalry officer who became a beloved cowboy star, bringing real Western expertise to the screen. Tim McCoy, the authentic frontiersman and cavalry officer who became a beloved cowboy star, bringing real Western expertise to the screen. He was born in Michigan in 1891, and, as a young man, went west and became a genuine expert on the Plains Indians and their sign language, living among them and earning their respect before serving as a cavalry officer in the First World War. This authentic Western background made him a natural for Hollywood, where he became a popular and dignified cowboy star of the late silent and sound eras, known for his crisp military bearing, his black hat, and the genuine authenticity he brought to his roles. He starred in many westerns across the 1920s and 1930s, and later toured with Wild West shows and circuses, a living link to the real frontier. He even won an Emmy for his educational television work about the West. Tim McCoy lived a long and full life, dying in 1978 at 86 of complications in Arizona. He is buried at Arlington National Cemetery, honored for his military service. The authentic frontiersman turned cowboy star, who brought real Western knowledge and dignity to the screen, rests among the nation's honored dead. His genuine expertise and his long career remembered now mainly by devoted students of the Western's earliest and most authentic stars. We travel now to honor the handsome cowboy actor best known as Lucky Jenkins, sidekick to Hopalong Cassidy, whose career in the saddle spanned the golden age of the B-Western. Russell Hayden, the handsome cowboy actor best known as Lucky Jenkins, the sidekick to Hopalong Cassidy, whose career in the saddle spanned the golden age of the B-Western. He was born in California in 1912 and worked behind the cameras before his good looks brought him in front of them, and he found fame as Lucky, the young sidekick to the beloved Hopalong Cassidy in a long and popular series of westerns. His easygoing charm and clean-cut appeal made him a favorite of matinee audiences, and he graduated to his own starring roles in numerous B-westerns across the 1940s. He later became a successful producer of television westerns, helping to shape the genre in the new medium, and he even developed a western town for filming. He remained connected to the western world he loved throughout his life. Russell Hayden died in 1981 at 68 of heart failure in California. He is buried in Palm Springs, California. The handsome cowboy sidekick turned star, who rode through so many beloved westerns as Lucky Jenkins and later helped bring the genre to television, rests now largely unvisited. His easygoing charm and his contributions to the western remembered mainly by the devoted fans who still cherish the matinee heroes of Hollywood's golden age. We travel now to honor the beloved matinee idol of the silent era whose roles in early westerns made him a star, and whose death from drug addiction shocked the nation. Wallace Reed, the beloved matinee idol of the silent era whose roles in early westerns and dramas made him a star, and whose death from drug addiction shocked the nation. He was born in St. Louis in 1891 and became one of the most popular leading men of the silent screen, an extraordinarily handsome and versatile actor who appeared in many films, including the epic Western, The Birth of a Nation, and numerous action pictures, admired as the perfect American man of his era. He was a genuine superstar, adored by millions. But Wallace Reed's tragedy was one of the first great cautionary tales of Hollywood. After being injured in a train accident while filming, He was given morphine to keep working, and he became hopelessly addicted to the drug. His addiction destroyed him with terrible speed, and he died in a sanatorium in 1923, trying to recover, at just 31 years old. His death, and his widow's public campaign about the dangers of drugs, made him a symbol of Hollywood's hidden perils. He is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. The beloved matinee idol, one of the greatest stars of the silent screen, rests now largely forgotten, his early roles in the Western, and his tragic death from addiction among the first of Hollywood's many cautionary tales. We travel now to honor the rotund, cheerful comic sidekick whose warmth delighted matinee audiences for decades. Smiley Burnett, the rotund, cheerful comic sidekick whose warmth delighted matinee audiences for decades. He was born in Illinois in 1911 and became one of the most beloved comic sidekicks in Western history, riding alongside Gene Autry and later Charles Starrett as the lovable, bumbling Frog Milhouse and other comic characters across an enormous number of B-Westerns. A gifted musician who wrote hundreds of songs and played many instruments, Smiley Burnett brought music and laughter to the Western, and his round face and cheerful manner made him a favorite of children for over 2 decades. His musical talent set him apart from the other comic sidekicks, and he composed an astonishing number of songs across his career, bringing genuine artistry to his lovable clowning. He wrote alongside many of the greatest cowboy stars of the era, and his round, cheerful face became one of the most familiar and reassuring sights of the Saturday matinee, delighting children for more than 2 decades. He later found warm new fame, with a whole new generation on the television series Petticoat Junction, playing the engineer Charlie Pratt, proving his enduring appeal long after the B-Western had faded. Smiley Burnett died in 1967, at 55, of leukemia, in California, still working and still beloved. He is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills. The beloved, cheerful sidekick who brought so much music and laughter to the Western and delighted generations of matinee children with his songs and his clowning, rests now largely unvisited today. His warm presence and his hundreds of songs remembered mainly by the devoted fans who still cherish the vanished world of the singing cowboy Western he helped to define. We travel now to honor the handsome star of television's Wild Bill Hickok, whose easygoing heroism made him a favorite across the golden age of the television Western. Guy Madison, the handsome star of television's Wild Bill Hickok, whose easygoing heroism made him a favorite, and whose career spanned the golden age of the television Western. He was born in California in 1922 and was discovered while serving in the Coast Guard during the Second World War, his striking good looks making him an instant sensation with audiences. He became a popular leading man, but found his greatest and most enduring fame as the star of the television series The Adventures of Wild Bill Hickok, in which he played the famous frontier lawman alongside Andy Devine, delighting a generation of young viewers across the 1950s. As Wild Bill, Guy Madison was a clean-cut, dependable Western hero, and the show made him one of the most familiar faces of the early television Western. He later worked extensively in European Westerns as the genre evolved. Guy Madison lived a fuller span than some on this list, dying in 1996 at 74 of emphysema in California. He is buried in Palm Springs, California. The handsome star of Wild Bill Hickok, a beloved and dependable hero of the early television Western, rests now largely unvisited, his easygoing heroism and his familiar face remembered mainly by those who grew up watching him ride across their screens in the golden age of the television cowboy. We travel now to honor the great Mexican actor and star of John Ford Westerns, whose life ended in a heartbreaking act of despair, Pedro Armendáriz. The great Mexican actor and star of John Ford Westerns, whose life ended in a heartbreaking act of despair. He was born in Mexico in 1912 and became one of the greatest stars of the golden age of Mexican cinema, a powerful and charismatic leading man, before crossing over to Hollywood, where the director John Ford cast him in celebrated westerns, including Fort Apache and Three Godfathers. His commanding presence and genuine talent made him a memorable figure in some of the finest westerns ever made, and he moved between Mexican and American films as a major international star. He was a proud and dignified man at the height of a distinguished career. But Pedro Armendáriz was diagnosed with terminal cancer, a disease some believe he contracted from radioactive contamination at a film location years earlier. Rather than endure a slow and painful death, Pedro Armendariz took his own life in 1963, at 51, in a Los Angeles hospital. His death shocked and saddened the film worlds of two nations. He is buried in Mexico City. The great Mexican star of John Ford's westerns, a powerful and dignified actor beloved on both sides of the border, rests now in his homeland. His life ended too soon by illness and despair, his memorable performances living on in some of the greatest westerns ever filmed. We travel now to honor one of the last of the singing cowboys signed by Hollywood, whose easygoing Texas charm made him a beloved matinee hero. Monty Hale, one of the last of the singing cowboys signed by Hollywood, whose easygoing charm made him a beloved matinee hero. He was born in Texas in 1919 and was discovered while performing at a war bond rally, brought to Hollywood as the studios sought new singing cowboys to follow Gene Autry and Roy Rogers. He became a popular star of B-westerns in the late 1940s, his warm baritone and genial Texas charm making him a favorite of matinee audiences during the final years of the singing cowboy era. He rode through a series of colorful westerns and became a familiar and beloved face to the young fans of the Saturday matinee. As the B-western faded, Hale worked less in film but remained a cherished figure at western festivals and gatherings for the rest of his life, beloved by fans who remembered the golden age. He also appeared in the epic Giant. Monty Hale lived a long life, dying in 2009 at 89 in California. He is buried in California, one of the last of the singing cowboys, whose warm Texas charm delighted the final generation of matinee audiences, rests now largely unvisited. His gentle heroics and his easygoing songs remembered mainly by the devoted fans, who still gather to celebrate the vanished world of the singing cowboy western. We travel now, for our final grave, to honor the athletic stuntman turned western star whose remarkable physical skills made him one of the genre's most capable heroes. Jock Mahoney, the athletic stuntman turned western star whose remarkable physical skills made him one of the genre's most capable heroes. He was born in Chicago in 1919 and became one of the greatest stuntmen in Hollywood history, an extraordinary athlete whose skill and daring led him to become a star in his own right. He found fame as the lead in the television westerns The Range Rider and Yancey Derringer, performing his own spectacular stunts and thrilling audiences with his athletic grace and rugged charm. He was one of the most physically gifted performers ever to work in the western, admired throughout the industry for his abilities, and he even went on to play Tarzan. He mentored and influenced countless stuntmen and performers, a beloved and respected figure. But his health was damaged after he contracted a serious illness while filming abroad, and later a stroke affected him. His athletic grace and daring made him a standout in an era full of capable performers, and he was respected throughout Hollywood as one of the finest stuntmen who ever lived, a man who could perform feats few others would attempt. He was also the stepfather of the actress Sally Field, and he influenced and mentored a generation of stunt performers who followed in his path. His later years were marked by declining health after the serious illness he had contracted abroad. Jock Mahoney died in 1989 at 70, following a car accident and a stroke in California. He is buried in California. The athletic stuntman turned western hero, one of the most physically gifted performers the genre ever produced, rests now largely unvisited. His spectacular stunts and his rugged heroism remembered mainly by devoted fans, and by the many stunt performers he inspired and trained across his remarkable career in the saddle. We travel now to honor a beloved and prolific cowboy star whose easygoing heroics made him a matinee favorite, and whose life ended in a shocking act of violence. Don "Red" Barry was a popular B-Western star of the 1940s, a small but intense and energetic performer who found real fame as the lead in the hit serial Adventures of Red Ryder, which gave him his enduring nickname. He was born in Texas in 1912 and became a dependable and busy cowboy hero, riding through a long series of Republic westerns and building a loyal following among the matinee audiences of the era. Though he was never among the very top tier of cowboy stars, his fiery energy and his convincing action made him a favorite, and he worked steadily for decades, later transitioning into character roles in film and television as the B-Western faded. He remained a working actor into the 1970s, a familiar face to generations of Western fans. But Don Barry's life off-screen was troubled, marked by a volatile temperament and personal turmoil that grew worse in his later years. In July 1980, following a domestic dispute, Don Barry died by suicide at his home in North Hollywood, shooting himself after a confrontation. He was 68 years old, and his violent death shocked the Western community that had known him for so long. He is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills. The fiery cowboy hero of Red Ryder, a beloved and energetic star of the matinee Western, rests now largely unvisited, his intense heroics and his troubled, tragic end remembered mainly by the devoted fans who still cherish the B-Westerns of Hollywood's golden age. We travel now to honor a rugged and versatile character actor whose weathered presence enriched dozens of Westerns and whose life was cut short at just 53. Warren Oates was one of the finest and most distinctive character actors of the new Hollywood era, a weathered, soulful performer whose work in westerns and revisionist films made him a beloved figure among fans and filmmakers alike. He was born in Kentucky in 1928 and brought a raw, authentic, deeply human quality to his roles, becoming a favorite of the director Sam Peckinpah and appearing in the landmark westerns Ride the High Country, Major Dundee, and, most memorably, The Wild Bunch, in which his portrayal of one of the doomed outlaws is unforgettable. He specialized in playing complex, flawed, often sweaty and desperate men, and his naturalistic style made him one of the most respected actors of his generation, equally at home in the dying Western and the gritty dramas of the 1970s. He seemed poised for many more years of great work, a beloved character man just reaching the height of his powers. But Warren Oates died suddenly of a heart attack in 1982, at just 53 years old, at his home in California. His death, a shock to the film world that had come to treasure him. He was cremated, and his ashes were scattered in Montana, on the land he loved. The soulful, weathered star of The Wild Bunch, one of the greatest character actors ever to work in the Western, left no grave to visit, his ashes committed to the Montana wilderness, his unforgettable performances living on in some of the finest Westerns ever made. We travel now to honor a beloved and instantly recognizable character actor whose comic and dramatic gifts graced hundreds of Westerns, and whose life ended too soon. Slim Pickens was one of the most beloved character actors in the history of the Western, a former rodeo clown whose authentic cowboy background, drawling voice, and warm, comic presence made him a favorite of audiences and directors for decades. He was born Louis Lindley in California in 1919 and spent years as a genuine rodeo clown before Hollywood discovered him, bringing a real cowboy's authenticity to the screen. He appeared in an enormous number of Westerns, usually as a comic sidekick or a memorable supporting player, and his distinctive voice and manner made him unforgettable, most famously in his iconic turn riding the bomb in Dr. Strangelove and in Mel Brooks's Blazing Saddles. He was a warm, genuine, and beloved presence, a real cowboy who became one of the movie's most cherished Western character actors, working constantly across film and television. But at the height of his long career, Slim Pickens was diagnosed with a brain tumor. He underwent surgery, but complications followed. Slim Pickens died in 1983 at 64, of the brain tumor and its complications. In California, his death mourned across Hollywood. He is buried in Columbia, California, in the gold country he loved. The beloved rodeo clown turned Western star, one of the most cherished and authentic cowboy character actors who ever lived, rests now in the California foothills, his warm drawl and his genuine cowboy spirit, remembered fondly by the many fans who loved him. We travel now to honor a powerfully built cowboy star of the silent and sound eras whose career was destroyed by a crippling illness that led to an early death in poverty. Tom Tyler was born Vincent Markowski in New York in 1903, the son of Lithuanian immigrants, and the champion weightlifter became a popular cowboy star, his impressive physique and athletic ability making him a favorite of the B-Western and serial era. He starred in numerous Westerns and famously played the title role in the serial The Adventures of Captain Marvel and The Mummy in a Universal horror film, a busy and versatile action star for 2 decades. He also appeared in major films like Stagecoach and Gone with the Wind. But in the 1940s, Tom Tyler was struck by severe rheumatoid arthritis, a crippling disease that destroyed his athletic body, ended his ability to perform the action roles that had made him famous, and left him in declining health and financial hardship. The powerful athlete was reduced to helplessness. Tom Tyler died in 1954, at just 50 years old, of a heart ailment complicated by his crippling arthritis, in poverty, in Michigan. He is buried in Michigan. The powerfully built cowboy star, once a champion athlete and popular hero, rests now largely forgotten, his career and his body destroyed by illness, his early death in hardship, a quiet tragedy of the Golden Age. We travel now to honor a genuine rodeo champion who became one of the greatest cowboy stars of the silent screen, and whose life ended in mystery and ruin. Art Acord was born in Utah in 1890 and was a real working cowboy and champion rodeo rider before Hollywood made him a star, bringing authentic Western skills to his many popular silent westerns of the 1910s and 1920s. His genuine horsemanship and rugged appeal made him a major cowboy star of the silent era, rivaling the biggest names in the genre, and he was adored by audiences who thrilled to his authentic Western action. But Art Acord's life collapsed with the coming of sound. His heavy drinking, financial ruin in the stock market crash, and personal troubles destroyed his career almost completely, and the once great star found himself unable to find work, drifting into obscurity and hardship. He ended up in Mexico, working in mines and prize fighting. Art Acord died in Mexico in 1931 at just 40 years old, of what was ruled a suicide by poison, though rumors of foul play have always surrounded his lonely death far from Hollywood. He is buried in Mexico, the genuine rodeo champion turned silent cowboy star, once one of the greatest heroes of the early Western, rests now in a foreign grave. His authentic heroism and his ruinous fall faded almost entirely from memory. We travel now to honor the handsome actor best known as Sky King, whose life ended in a tragic accident on his way to honor a historic space mission. Kirby Grant, the handsome actor best known as Sky King, whose life ended in a tragic accident on his way to honor a historic mission. He was born in Montana in 1911 and, after years as a musician and actor, found his greatest and most enduring fame as the flying cowboy Sky King, the rancher and pilot who used his airplane to catch criminals and rescue the endangered on the beloved television series of the 1950s. As Sky King, Kirby Grant became a hero to a generation of children, a modern cowboy who combined the traditional Western virtues with the excitement of aviation, and the role made him one of the most familiar faces of early television. He remained closely associated with the beloved character for the rest of his life, cherished by the fans who had grown up watching him. In his later years, he retired to Florida. In October 1985, Kirby Grant was driving to Cape Canaveral to watch a space shuttle launch, having been invited to see a mission that carried a special tribute when he was killed in a car accident on the Florida highway. He was 73 years old. He is buried in Florida. The beloved Sky King, the flying cowboy hero who thrilled a generation of children, rests now largely unvisited, his modern Western heroism remembered fondly by those who grew up watching him soar across their television screens. We travel now to honor a tall and genuine cowboy whose rodeo background made him a popular B-Western star, though his career was cut short by his own troubles. Sunset Carson was born Winifred Harrison in Oklahoma around 1920 and was a real rodeo champion before becoming, in the mid-1940s, a popular star of Republic Westerns. His towering height, genuine riding ability, and rugged authenticity making him a favorite of matinee audiences during the final years of the B-Western era. He rode through a series of popular westerns and seemed poised for lasting stardom in the genre. But Sunset Carson's promising career was abruptly derailed, reportedly after a scandal and disputes with his studio that led to his firing, and he never recovered his momentum, drifting into low-budget films and personal appearances for the rest of his career. He spent decades touring with rodeos and Wild West shows, a beloved if faded figure among Western fans. Sunset Carson died in 1990 at around 70 of a heart attack in Illinois. He is buried in Reno, Nevada. The tall, genuine cowboy star, once a promising B-Western hero whose career was cut short by scandal, rests now largely unvisited, his authentic rodeo heroics and his brief stardom remembered mainly by the devoted fans who still gather to celebrate the matinee cowboys of the Golden Age. We travel now to honor a ruggedly handsome actor whose intense presence made him a memorable Western and film noir star, and whose life ended in a bizarre and lonely death at sea. Steve Cochran was born in California in 1917 and became a popular leading man of the late 1940s and 1950s, a darkly handsome and charismatic performer who appeared in westerns, crime films, and dramas, often playing tough guys, heavies, and morally complex anti-heroes. His brooding intensity and good looks made him a genuine star, and he worked opposite some of the biggest names of the era, building a solid career across the genres of the period, including memorable Western roles. He was a colorful and adventurous figure off-screen as well, known for his romances and his love of the sea. But Steve Cochran met one of the strangest ends of any actor of his era. In June 1965, while sailing his yacht off the coast of Central America with a small crew, he fell ill and died of a lung infection. His body remained aboard the drifting boat for days as the inexperienced crew struggled to reach port. He was just 48 years old. He is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills. The darkly handsome star of westerns and noir, a charismatic and adventurous performer, rests, now largely forgotten. His intense screen presence and his bizarre death at sea faded from memory. We travel now to honor a handsome leading man who found fame as Johnny Nelson, the sidekick to Hopalong Cassidy in the early films of that beloved series. James Ellison was born in Iowa in 1910 and became a popular young leading man in the 1930s, most notably riding alongside William Boyd's Hopalong Cassidy as the cheerful, romantic sidekick Johnny Nelson in the first several beloved entries of the long-running Western series. His good looks and easygoing charm made him a favorite, and he also appeared in major films, including the classic The Plainsman opposite Gary Cooper, and a range of westerns and musicals across his career. He worked steadily through the 1940s and into the 1950s, a familiar and dependable presence in the B-Western and beyond, before his career gradually wound down. He retired from acting and went into real estate. He also appeared alongside other cowboy stars and in a variety of pictures across the decades, a familiar and welcome face to the audiences of the era before his time in the saddle came to an end. James Ellison died in 1993, at 83, of natural causes, in California. He is buried in California. Though he lived a longer life than many on this list, the handsome Hopalong Cassidy sidekick, who charmed matinee audiences as Johnny Nelson in the earliest and most beloved films of that classic Western series, rests now largely unvisited. His easygoing heroics remembered mainly by the devoted fans, who still treasure the golden age of the B-Western. We travel now to honor a handsome and athletic cowboy star, best known as one of the original Three Musketeers, and as the Lone Ranger, whose career faded into hard times. Bob Livingston was born in California in 1904, and became a popular B-Western star in the 1930s, most famous as Stony Brook in the hugely popular Three Musketeers series, riding alongside his fellow heroes in a long run of beloved Republic Westerns. He also donned the mask to play the Lone Ranger in a serial, and his dashing good looks and athletic ability made him a favorite of matinee audiences during the golden age of the B-Western. He was, for a time, one of the more popular cowboy stars in Hollywood, a dependable and charismatic hero. But as the B-Western declined, so did Bob Livingston's fortunes, and his later years were marked by diminishing roles, financial hardship, and obscurity, a steep fall from his years of stardom. He worked in increasingly minor films before retiring. Bob Livingston died in 1988 at 84 of emphysema and heart failure in California. He is buried in California. The dashing Three Musketeers hero and Lone Ranger, once a popular star of the Golden Age Western, rests now largely forgotten, his heroic roles and his long decline remembered mainly by the devoted fans who still cherish the matinee cowboys of that vanished era. We travel now to honor a former silent film comedian who became one of the most beloved comic sidekicks in the history of the B-Western, Al Fuzzy Street. John, a former silent film comedian who became one of the most beloved comic sidekicks in the history of the B-Western. He was born in Missouri in 1892 and began his career as a star comedian in the silent era, working alongside his uncle, the great Fatty Arbuckle, and Buster Keaton, a genuinely gifted physical comedian in his own right during the golden age of silent comedy. When his starring days ended, he reinvented himself as Fuzzy, the whiskered, bumbling, lovable old-timer sidekick to a series of B-Western heroes, and in this role he found enormous and lasting popularity, becoming one of the most beloved and recognizable comic sidekicks of the 1930s and 1940s. His gift for physical comedy, honed in the silent era, made his Fuzzy character a favorite of matinee children for years. He rode alongside many cowboy stars, bringing laughter to countless westerns. Al Street. John died in 1963, at 70, of a heart attack, while traveling to a personal appearance in Georgia to greet his still devoted fans. He is buried in Homosassa, Florida. The beloved silent comedian turned Western sidekick, whose lovable fuzzy character brought laughter to a generation of matinee audiences, rests now largely unvisited. His gift for comedy and his warm, whiskered grin remembered mainly by the devoted fans who still cherish the golden age of the B-Western. We travel now to honor a singing cowboy star of the late 1930s, whose promising career quickly faded. Bob Baker was born Leland Weed in Iowa in 1910 and was groomed by Universal as a singing cowboy to compete with the enormously popular Gene Autry, becoming a leading man in a series of musical westerns in the late 1930s. His pleasant singing voice and clean-cut appeal made him a modestly popular matinee hero for a few years, riding through a run of B-westerns as the studio hoped he would become their answer to the singing cowboy craze. But Bob Baker never achieved the stardom the studio hoped for, and as newer and more popular singing cowboys emerged, his career quickly faded, reducing him to supporting roles and sidekick parts before he left films altogether. He later worked as a police officer and in other jobs far from Hollywood. His gentle songs and clean-cut heroism had briefly made him a hopeful contender in the crowded field of singing cowboys, but the moment passed him by, and he faded quietly from the screen he had briefly graced. Bob Baker died in 1975, at 65, in California. He is buried in California. The singing cowboy who was meant to rival Gene Autry, but whose stardom faded almost as quickly as it came, rests now largely forgotten. His brief career as a matinee hero, remembered mainly by the most devoted students of the singing cowboy western and its many vanished stars. We travel now to honor a distinguished and versatile actor whose memorable roles in westerns and thrillers made him a star, and whose bizarre death shocked Hollywood. Albert Decker was born in New York in 1905, and became one of the most respected character actors of his generation. A powerful and versatile performer who appeared in a wide range of films, including westerns, and who was memorable as the villain in the classic thriller Dr. Cyclops, and in the landmark western The Wild Bunch, which was released after his death. He was a serious and cultured man who even served a term in the California State Assembly, a genuine intellectual among Hollywood actors, respected for his talent and his integrity across a long and distinguished career on stage and screen. But Albert Decker met one of the most shocking and mysterious ends of any actor of his era. In May 1968, he was found dead in his Hollywood apartment in strange and disturbing circumstances that were ultimately ruled an accident. He was 62 years old, and his bizarre death cast a dark shadow over the memory of a fine and respected actor. He is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. The distinguished character actor, a memorable presence in westerns and thrillers and a man of genuine intellect, rests now largely forgotten, his fine performances overshadowed by the disturbing mystery of his death. We travel now to honor a red-headed singing cowboy star of the late 1930s, whose warm voice and easy charm made him a Warner Brothers matinee favorite. Dick Foran was born in New Jersey in 1910 and became one of the early singing cowboys, a handsome, red-haired leading man whose pleasant baritone and athletic appeal made him a popular star of Warner Brothers B-Westerns in the mid-1930s, one of the studio's answers to the singing cowboy craze. He rode through a series of musical westerns and also appeared in major films, including horror classics and dramas, a versatile and dependable performer who worked steadily across the decades. He later became a reliable character actor, appearing in many films and television westerns long after his own starring days had passed, a familiar face to generations of fans. His warm baritone and his red-headed all-American appeal had made him one of the more distinctive of the early singing cowboys, and he remained a busy and dependable presence in the genre long after his starring days had passed. Dick Foran died in 1979, at 68, in California. He is buried at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. The red-headed singing cowboy, a beloved Warner Brothers matinee hero of the Golden Age, rests now largely unvisited. His warm voice and his easygoing heroics, remembered mainly by the devoted fans who still cherish the singing cowboy westerns of that vanished era. We travel now to honor a tall and handsome leading man who became a popular star of westerns and serials, and whose life ended in despair. Grant Withers was born in Colorado in 1905 and became a busy and popular leading man, beginning in the late silent era. A tall, rugged, and handsome performer who appeared in an enormous number of films across 3 decades, many of them westerns. both as a hero and later as a dependable villain and character actor. He was a member of John Ford's informal stock company, appearing in several of the director's celebrated films, and he worked constantly, a familiar and reliable presence in the Western genre and beyond, respected as a hard-working professional. But Grant Withers struggled in his personal life with alcoholism and a series of failed marriages, and his once promising leading man career had declined into supporting roles. Worn down by illness, financial trouble, and despair, Grant Withers died by suicide in 1959 at 55 from an overdose in California, leaving a note apologizing to his friends. He is buried at Valhalla Memorial Park in North Hollywood, California. The tall, rugged leading man, a prolific star of westerns and a member of John Ford's company, rests now largely forgotten, his heroic roles and his tragic, despairing end remembered mainly by the devoted students of the Golden Age Western who still recall his familiar face. We travel now to honor a genuine cowboy who became a popular, silent and sound Western star before fading into character roles, known as Wally Wales and later Hal Taliaferro. He was born Floyd Taliaferro Alderson in Montana in 1895 and grew up as a real working cowboy on the Montana range before Hollywood made him a star, bringing genuine Western authenticity to his many popular silent westerns of the 1920s under the name Wally Wales. His real riding and roping skills and his rugged authenticity made him a favorite of the silent-era matinee audiences, a genuine cowboy hero. But like so many silent Western stars, his leading man career faded with the coming of sound and changing tastes, and he reinvented himself under the name Hal Taliaferro as a dependable character actor and villain, appearing in a great many westerns across the 1930s and 1940s, a familiar face in support of the newer cowboy stars. He worked steadily for years before retiring to paint and returned to the Western life he had known. Wally Wales died in 1980 at 84 in California, having outlived the silent era by more than half a century. He is buried in California. The genuine Montana cowboy turned silent Western star, a real hero of the early matinee before he faded into character roles, rests now largely forgotten. His authentic frontier skills and his long career, remembered mainly by the most devoted students of the vanished silent Western. We travel now to honor a large and genial character actor whose good-natured presence made him a beloved fixture of the Western for decades. Ginn Big Boy Williams was born in Texas in 1899, the son of a congressman, and was a genuine cowboy and rodeo performer before Hollywood made him a star, his enormous size and warm, folksy manner earning him his nickname and making him a natural for the Western. He appeared in a staggering number of films across 4 decades, usually as a lovable, none-too-bright sidekick or a good-natured tough guy, riding alongside the greatest cowboy stars of the era and becoming one of the most familiar and beloved character actors in the genre. He was a close friend of many stars, including Will Rogers, and his genuine cowboy background lent authenticity to his many roles. He appeared in classics including The Alamo and Dodge City, a dependable and cherished presence for generations of Western fans. Ginn Williams died in 1962 at 63 of uremic poisoning in California. He is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills. The large, genial cowboy character actor, a beloved fixture of the Western for 4 decades whose warm presence delighted audiences, rests now largely unvisited. His good-natured heroics and his folksy charm, remembered mainly by the devoted fans who still cherish the golden age of the genre he served so faithfully. We travel now to honor a towering and handsome actor whose rugged presence made him a memorable Western figure. Don McQueen was born in California in 1922 and stood a towering 6 feet 5 inches tall, a powerfully built and handsome performer who became a dependable presence in westerns and adventure films across the 1950s and 1960s. His imposing size making him a natural for heroic and villainous roles alike. He appeared in numerous Western films and television series during the golden age of the television Western, a familiar face to fans of the genre, and he even starred in a Western television pilot and played memorable roles in science fiction and horror films, including a turn as the creature from the Black Lagoon on land. His height and rugged looks made him instantly recognizable. A solid and dependable character man, Don McQueen worked steadily through the peak years of the television Western before his career wound down. He died in 1981 at 58 of cancer in California. He is buried in California. The towering, rugged actor, a memorable and dependable presence in the westerns and adventure films of the 1950s and 1960s, rests now largely forgotten. His imposing figure and his heroic and villainous roles remembered mainly by the devoted fans who still cherish the golden age of the television western. We travel now to honor a handsome and authoritative actor whose commanding voice and presence made him a star of westerns and serials. Reed Hadley was born in Texas in 1911 and became a busy and popular leading man and character actor. His tall, handsome appearance and rich, commanding voice making him a natural for heroic roles in westerns, serials, and crime dramas across the 1940s and 1950s. He starred as the masked hero in the popular serial Zorro's Fighting Legion and appeared in a great many westerns, and his authoritative voice also made him one of the busiest narrators in Hollywood, lending gravity to countless films and documentaries. He later found television fame as the star of the popular series Racket Squad and Public Defender, a familiar and respected presence for years. Reed Hadley worked steadily across film, radio, and television, a dependable and versatile performer. He died in 1974 at 63 in California. He is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills. The handsome, commanding star of westerns and serials, whose rich voice narrated so many films and whose masked heroism thrilled matinee audiences, rests now largely unvisited. His dashing roles and his authoritative presence, remembered mainly by the devoted fans who still cherish the westerns and serials of Hollywood's golden age. We travel now for our final grave to honor a tall and handsome cowboy star of the 1930s whose long career in the saddle spanned the golden age of the B-Western. Tom Keene was born George Duryea in New York in 1896 and became a popular leading man before finding his true home in the Western, where, under the name Tom Keene, his tall, handsome appearance and easy authority made him a favorite star of RKO and other studios' B-Westerns throughout the 1930s. He rode through a long series of popular westerns as a dependable and appealing hero, beloved by matinee audiences during the peak years of the genre, and he later worked under the name Richard Powers in character roles, appearing even in the infamous Plan 9 from Outer Space near the end of his career. He was a familiar and dependable western hero for years, a solid presence in the Golden Age matinee. His easy authority and handsome appeal had made him one of the dependable cowboy heroes of the RKO westerns, and he remained a working actor for decades under various names, a familiar presence to the audiences of the Golden Age. Tom Keene died in 1963, at 66, of cancer, in California. He is buried at San Fernando Mission Cemetery in California. The tall, handsome cowboy star, a dependable and beloved hero of the 1930s B-Western, rests now largely forgotten. His easygoing heroics and his long career in the saddle remembered mainly by the devoted fans who still cherish the vanished world of the matinee Western. Beloved Western actors, resting across America, from Hollywood cemeteries to quiet hometown graves to the honored ground of Arlington. What connects them is the strange sorrow behind the heroic image. So many died suddenly and violently, echoing the dangerous world they portrayed. Tom Mix on a desert highway, Buck Jones in a nightclub fire, Audie Murphy and Jock Mahoney in crashes, Pedro Armendariz and Wallace Reed to despair and addiction. So many died too soon, their promise unfulfilled. Nick Adams, mysteriously, at 36. James Dean, at 24, just as Giant revealed what he might have become. And so many faded into obscurity and hardship, their matinee fame forgotten. Ken Maynard and Lash LaRue, once idols, dying in poverty and neglect. They gave us the heroes of the American West, the gunfighters and lawmen and cowboys who made us believe in courage and honor. And so many of them received, in return, early graves, hard endings, and the quiet forgetting that claims even the brightest stars. What we can do, tonight and every night, is remember them. Watch their films, say their names. Think of the specific ground where each of them lies, from the Hollywood Hills to the Indiana farmland to the honored fields of Arlington. It costs us nothing, and it is the one thing we can still offer the heroes who gave us so much and so often left us too soon. They rode across our screens and into our hearts. The least we can do is not forget where they finally came to rest. Thank you for walking with me. Rest well. And if you pass a cemetery in the coming week and you have a moment, stop and read a name, any name. Someone was loved, once, who is buried there. It costs us nothing, and it may be the only thing that keeps any of us from disappearing entirely. Good night, friends.